All right, guys, we are officially back. The hiatus is over, and yes, we are going to get back into posting YouTube. I have put this off for a while, mainly because editing and posting on 3 different platforms was killing me, but I think I found a new little system that can make it a little bit easier for me. But nonetheless, today we're gonna be doing a Q&A because I feel like that's a great way to start things off. It's been a while. I can answer some questions, give you guys some insight into things, and maybe clarify questions you guys have that maybe you're not sure where I stand. I don't know. I don't know what the questions are going to be. There's a lot of questions from the last Instagram Q&A that kind of spilled over that I didn't get a chance to answer. So I figured this would be a good time. But before we get into anything, I wanted to give a quick shout out to the Chemist supplements, which you see behind me. You're always wondering, whose pre-workout is this? It is technically not mine. It is actually my girlfriend's company, and that is the Chemist. So if you check the link in the description, you can check it out. But it is a white chocolate raspberry pre-workout. We're trying to get rid of this stock so we can actually start playing around with supplementation of creatine. And it is something that we've been thinking about for quite some time. We like pre-workout, don't get me wrong, and we will probably sell more of it in the future. But we want to play around with different supplements because, you know, we're always doing just pre-workout. The only people who seem to really benefit from this are people who train in the mornings or afternoons because there's caffeine. We are also considering doing a non-stint down the future, but these things cost money. So we need to do a better job marketing this. And we probably will consider taking on affiliates in the future just to kind of get the word out more. But for now, just check it out in the link in my description. Use code JACK, it'll save you 10%, and make sure you check it out. If you do use my code, send me a message on Instagram. I'll personally sign it and say thank you. But with that being said, let's get into the Q&A and get some of these questions out of the way. So pull up my stuff. First question right off the bat, what is your favorite cereal so far? This is in relation to my little cereal review series that I kind of do on my alt account. And so far, the best one that I've had out of everything was the Special K Red Berry cereal. It was so good. A close second was actually Postmates s'mores. I was not expecting to like the s'mores cereal as much as I did, but I did like it. It was pretty good. Both of those I think were above an 8.5 out of 10. I think the Special K was like an 8.9, and I think s'mores was like an 8.8 if I'm not mistaken. Do you think anyone needs lower pec isolation? Well, you're never isolating the lower pec, but you can bias it. And whether or not you need to bias it, I think just depends on your structure. I think there is reason and need to bias regions of muscles, and I think the lower pec is no exception. If you look at your chest and you look flaccid at the bottom, you don't really have much actual size, I think doing something like a dumbbell pullover is a great exercise, a great option, and it will help increase the fullness of your chest if it is something you are lacking. With that being said, you don't need to do anything. You could just do horizontal adduction, train the whole chest, and it might look good for you. So it just depends on who you are. Do you think peptides will make a noticeable difference in your training? Probably not a noticeable difference in training, because most of the peptides that I am aware of are not really going to directly improve your training performance. Most of them are for cosmetic stuff. So improving the skin tone, giving you a more tan look, with melanotan. What are some other ones? GLP-1s will help with weight loss, but most of these are not directly improving training. And also a lot of them are not FDA approved. They don't have a lot of randomized control trials. We don't know long-term effects of these things. So I'm not gonna typically recommend any peptides, especially if, well, number one, you haven't done any research yourself. So that's not something I like to talk too much about. Where would a seatbelt be a useful tool, and when does it become unnecessary? I think it becomes unnecessary when you use it as a way to make your ego lifting look less like ego lifting. And what I mean by that is when people seatbelt into like a leg extension or leg curl and they still have this crazy shift happening at the hips, but the seatbelt's just stopping it from like looking bad, I think you're basically defeating the purpose of a seatbelt, right? Because if you're still having these crazy amounts of isometric or actual dynamic contractions occurring at the pelvis area, then you're still cheating the lift. You're still ego lifting. You're just doing it like it's just not as apparent. So I think it's a good tool to help keep you in place with a leg curl or a leg extension. Those are great options, but it becomes an issue when you are using it to mask an issue rather than address the issue. So with that being said, I think they're both Both exercises there are great options to use a seatbelt for, but again, the tool can be misused, and if it's misused, I mean, you're going to, not really get a benefit from it. Let's see, let's go on to the next one. Does a 1 rep max fry your CNS? This is kind of complex. I would say probably not much, depending on like if you really are doing a true 1 rep max. And it really just depends on like what exercise you're doing. CNS fatigue, like a 1 rep max bicep curl, not much CNS fatigue. One rep max like deadlift, maybe a bit more. So I think it's a subjective it's a subjective question because, or not a subjective question, it's just a nuanced question that depends on the context. So you have to look at everything that is like at play in order to answer that question. But in comparison to higher rep sets that have a lot more muscle damage, probably not. Those are probably not going to be that fatiguing in terms of CNS fatigue. Are you and Paul Carter still good? I'm not really on speaking terms with Paul, and I'm not going to get too much into that. I've already talked about it, like I think a few times on my alt accounts on like TikTok. I don't want to get into like personal beefs, but it just came down to having different moral positions on things, and when you have complete moral opposite positions, it doesn't really work out very well. So no, I'm not associated with him anymore, and I do not plan probably on ever being associated with him again. So that's all I'll say on that. Is multivitamins 8 useful? I don't know what I'm assuming you mean, are multivitamins useful? Yes and no. You have to look at what is in like the multivitamin and what you are missing in your diet, because if you overconsume some vitamins, it can actually be an issue. So you need to actually plug in your diet to like something like Chronometer, then take your multivitamin, plug that in, and see if it is helpful, because it's not something that I can tell you will be, because it just depends on your diet. Is a flat press and a incline fly in the same session redundant? I think this depends on how you do your chest press, but remember, redundancy implies that you are doing the similar movement pattern with a similar resistance profile and similar range of motion, right? Because if I'm doing something like a chest press and I have my upper arm coming up here, right? So I'm doing something like this, it's converging, and I have a good amount of shoulder flexion, and then I do it like a fly like this, then this is pretty redundant, because I mean, this is kind of the same thing, right? Like you're doing the same action and doing the same range of motion, and if it's the same resistance profile, it's gonna have same levels of tension. That's where I would say it's redundant. But let's say I'm doing a chest press like this, and I'm limiting shoulder flexion, and then I do a loaded high fly like this. I would say that's not redundant, because you have different arm paths, different actions are being trained more. So just pay attention to what the actual movement is, and you can kind of determine whether or not you are being redundant with something. But again, doing the same action doesn't always mean redundant. It just, you have to understand where the tension is going to be the highest and ask yourself, are the same things going to work at the same level with these movements that I'm doing? Stimulating reps model vaulted because mechanical tension is not dictated by force velocity curve much due to AGR. I'm not sure what AGR stands for, because I mean, I know you're running out of room, but I think the stimulating reps model should never have been used the way it was, where it's like you always have exactly 5 reps that are going to be the most stimulating for your type 2X muscle fibers. But that being said, the general idea is true. I mean by general idea, the general idea being that the closer you are to failure, the more stimulating those reps are. So like if I'm training to 0 reps in reserve, or I'm training to 1 rep in reserve, they're gonna be pretty similar in stimulus as a whole for those sets. So if I do like 5 reps with 0 reps in reserve, or I do 6 reps with 1 rep in reserve, you're gonna have a pretty similar level of stimulus. But if I did 10 reps and I was like 5 reps in reserve, I'm not gonna have that high level of a stimulus that's going to lead to as much growth as I could. But it doesn't mean there's no growth with 5 reps in reserve. So that's where the stimulating reps model is a little bit, I think, it's not vaulted, but it is very misapplied in some contexts, because as long as there is tension on muscle fibers and there is enough of it, muscles will grow. And that's the only reason I think the stimulating reps model itself still has some value, but it is like with many things, misunderstood and misused by some people. So that's I guess my opinion. But again, I don't know if I know the full context of your question, because it did look like it got cut off. How many carbs throughout the day before a lift? I think this is one of those questions that we don't have an answer to, and I'll be honest, it's probably not something you should worry too much about. The only reason I'm saying you don't need to worry too much about it is because I think the total daily carbohydrate intake is the most important factor. Now, I do recommend splitting it up into at least 3 to 5 different meals. That way you can partition these nutrients out. Ideally, 4 to 5 is what I aim for. But that being said, it's still not something that matters all that much. The only thing that I would say that you should pay attention to when trying to have higher carbs is making sure that you understand what kind of carb you are consuming. Because if you're consuming like a simple carb right when you're doing nothing, like, right, you just eat it and then you do nothing, you're gonna probably feel really tired, because if it's simple, it's gonna digest fast, spike your insulin, and you're gonna be like, oh. Right? So like, that's not something you want. So ideally, understand like the role of like different types of carbs in different circumstances, and just try to get in more carbs as much as you can, while still adhering to your protein intake and getting in at least, I would say, probably 20 to 25% of your diet and dietary fats, as long as you aim roughly for that. Mind you, that 20 to 25% number, it's a general guide, because it's not perfect, and honestly there is some nuance to that as well. But as long as you're getting in those numbers and you're getting in a good amount of carbs, you're probably going to be fine. All right, last question: 2x versus 3x frequency, individual differences. I mean, I'm assuming you might be asking about my individual, like, I guess my experience. If that's what you're asking, I can quickly talk about that. I honestly have seen benefits and downsides to playing around with both. So with 2x frequency, I saw pretty decent growth, but there were some muscles that I feel like were a little bit more lagging as a result. But maybe that was also just because of the split I was running. With 3 times frequency, I have more of an issue of recovery and making sure that what I'm doing is going to actually be efficient. So with 2 times frequency, it's a lot easier to get away with more volume and still see some progress on pretty much everything. But with 3 times frequency, some things might struggle to progress because you have to be careful with your frequency. What is my cat doing? But yeah, either way, that's all the time I got for this Q&A. So hopefully I got through a good amount of that. We'll try to do some more of these in the future. But yeah, I'm gonna go train. I gotta get my pre-workout down, and I'll take Ella to the gym that she likes to train at. And then I'm gonna go to my home gym and we'll get a good session in. It's an upper day today. And maybe if I'm feeling nice, I'll show the physique. I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, thank you guys for the good questions. And yeah, hopefully we can keep doing this, keep this up, and not go slacking on the YouTube content again. So let's get to the gym. Okay, I'm going to speak to you guys a little bit about stuff outside of science-based lifting, because I feel like if that's all I ever talk about, I'm just going to be kind of a one-trick pony. But I was talking to another creator who's in the science-based lifting world, who also makes content around self-help and philosophy, and he put me onto a book called The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. So far, I found it pretty interesting, but I have noticed some flaws with Stoicism from the scientific perspective, so it makes it hard to get fully into it. But I do think some of the rationale around separating your thought process into a director who gives you objective advice versus the student who's there to learn and ask questions is definitely an interesting concept. It really can put into perspective how the way we think can be so easily influenced by everything happening around us externally, and it just puts into perspective how some of these things that happen to us are neither bad or good objectively, but the way we process it can be interpreted as such. If we can train our mind to be more logical in our thought process around external triggers, we can avoid overreacting to situations and be more rational with our thought process, which I obviously think is a good thing. So even though there are some fundamental issues with some of the stuff around humans being superior to all other creatures because we're the only thing capable of logical reasoning, which is just not true whatsoever based on the evidence we have, I still will take some of the stuff
with, you know, a grain of salt. What I learned from this book, I'll try to apply it to my life, because I do think I have a bad habit sometimes of letting external situations kind of rile me up a little too much, and I want to do better about that. But either way, I thought it was interesting to talk about, and I do highly recommend the book. But shout out to Omer for the recommendation. It's nice to get back into reading about philosophy, psychology, and of course, physiology. But either way, that's going to be kind of the end of the video. I did decide to show you guys a little bit of a physique reveal. Obviously, I'm still not where I want to be. We're obviously looking a lot leaner. There are some spots that I obviously want to fill out more, specifically my shoulders and more arm size, of course, but we are definitely making pretty good improvements. So I'm excited to see what happens when we get down towards the single digits, and then we can really focus on just growing as much as humanly possible.
All right, just got back home. Had a little date with Ella. Took her to the mall, got her some fucking earrings, got her some perfume, and some other small little goodies. And I also snagged myself some cologne. It's Giorno Armani. It's Aqua di Gio. It's the white one, okay? That's the only way I know how to pronounce. I don't know. I can't pronounce shit. So this is the only one that she liked in the lineup that they had to offer us. It was like this. I think it honestly had like the most notable like note of lime and sweetness, and it just like it was the one that Ella just like resonated with most. And to be honest, she's the only one I care about in terms of like, oh, you smell so good. Like, I want her to say that. I don't care about you, right? So no offense, but this is the one that she likes, so I highly recommend it. But aside from that, that's all I got. Feel like we talked a lot today, so I'm tired of talking. I want to go hang out with Ella when she's done with her cardio, and then we'll chill out for the rest of the night. But hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Comment down below any other things you guys want me to make videos about, because I mean, in order for me to make these kind of YouTube videos, I feel like I need real content to make stuff on. So either way, until next time, I'll see you guys. So peace.